An essay on Gen X by Richard J. Panizza. After all that we grew up with, after all that we have known, a generation caught between two preceding generations, the baby boomers and their parents, the World War II generation. What has then shaped our souls? What has encapsulated in terms of politics of what we look upon the past histories learned stemming from the Great Depression, World War II, and what came after? The great civil rights movement of the 1960s, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 giving unambiguous rights to all Americans. Preceding that, the horrible tragedy of the assassination of President Kennedy. However, then, the re-enlightenment of Ronald Reagan and the conservative movement of the 1980s. A genuine political revolution, not for a digression of a world of the defamation or deraveling of government, but for a new reform, a restructuring of government to work in a viable and coherent manner for all of the peoples of the United States of America. The Gen Xers, as it was so dubbed in the 1980s, to be a generation that has no rendering of a sense of self in regard to any social projection of historical acclamation of and towards the historical lessons of the past. Who then are we? We are a combination of all of these historical elements of the 20th and 21st centuries intertwined. The Great Depression of the 1930s, FDR's New Deal, World War II, the Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s, as well as the War on Poverty, the horrid nature of the Cold War, the space race which landed the United States on the moon, and then Vietnam. A nuclear proliferation to now we as man could bring an end to the world, an ever-changing economic base of an industrialized nation, to a service-based economy, bringing forth a transition that we are still very painfully undergoing. Finally, the first African-American president to be overwhelmingly elected to the presidency of the United States. These are the historical backings of a generation. A generation that votes mostly down conservative lines. However, through body, soul, and an essence of identity that is truly from all races, ethnicities, various social political persuasions, stands a generation that with authentic identity, the identity of America. I'm Richard J. Panizza.